It's been a busy first few days as Prime Minister for Rishi Sunak with his first cabinet meeting and PMQs.
Well, another man who's been very busy is the newly appointed Minister without Portfolio and Chair of the Conservative Party, Nadhim Zahawi, who joins us now. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. I have to put it to you, you've been accused of flip-flopping, haven't you, with your support, who you were backing as leader. We know back in July you said that Boris Johnson had to go, and then at the weekend you were calling him for him to come back. And then you changed your mind when he dropped out, and then you backed Rishi Sunak. What was the situation here? Could you not make your mind up?
Charlotte, you're quite right. So when Boris was still Prime Minister and I was his Chancellor, you'll remember there was, as he put it, there was a stampede of ministers who resigned from the government. I felt that... Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm getting someone on my... Someone is coming through from the production at the back.
Sorry, we'll try to sort that out in the meantime, but if you can bear with us.
Yes, forgive me. So, as I was saying, that when I asked Boris that he really should consider his position, because there was many over 50 colleagues had resigned their positions, and it was becoming impossible to actually form a stable government. Of course, over the weekend, what I didn't want to happen is for the membership or the public to feel that we have somehow MPs had conspired to keep the man who delivered the mandate for all of us, because it's our mandate collectively in 2019, off the ballot paper. And actually, I wanted to be his decision because he got the 102 endorsements. But I called him Boris 2.0. And actually, reflecting on that, Boris 1.0 may have still gone forward to the membership and probably caused much bigger challenges for us and for the country. Boris 2.0 reflected and put country and party first and backed Rishi Sunak. And I think we've arrived at the right place. We're one family. We are one government. You look around that cabinet table, there's pictures yesterday. It's a government of all the talents that Rishi Sunak has pulled together.
Well, it might be one family, but there seem to be quite a few disagreements on the way. It's a family that keeps falling out, not quite sure about where its allegiance lies. I mean, what was it with the change of heart? Was part of it sort of wanting to make sure you had the right job, that you needed to back the right person? No,
I've got to tell you, as I just tried to describe, I didn't want us to be perceived or for it to be real, that we were trying to keep the man who delivered that 2019 mandate, that 80 majority in Parliament, off the ballot paper by somehow conspiring against him. I wanted it to be his choice, and that's exactly what happened. That's a good thing in my view, and he was able to reflect and see that Rishi was overwhelmingly being supported by the parliamentary party, and then to put his name, let his name go forward and cause a much bigger challenge for the country, because we'd have a further delay without having a stable government. He reflected and he withdrew, rightly so, and now we've got the right Prime Minister. So I don't think those things are incompatible in my view. I think we've arrived at the right place with the right Prime Minister.
Mr. Zahawi, the way it looks to some people on the outside is that you're just going to back who you think is going to be the winner, who's going to get past the finishing post. You've had 9 jobs in this government since 2019. That tells a story itself. I mean, you talked about, when you wrote that letter to Boris Johnson, public open letter, you talked about this country deserves a government that is not only stable, but which acts with integrity. Integrity means morals and principles and honesty. Within 24 hours, you tweeted in the morning saying, I back Boris. You'd written a column for The Telegraph that came out at 9 o'clock saying you backed Boris. By 9:24, you were backing Rishi Sunak. Where is the integrity and morals and principles in any of that?
So, Adil, I'm very proud of my record in government. I was the business minister when we were preparing for Brexit, which Boris delivered. He then gave me the great honour of delivering the vaccines for this country, the vaccine deployment. I was on your programme many times with you and with Piers Morgan and others, talking about how we delivered the most successful vaccination programme in the world, in my view. And then, of course, I went on to education and delivered on skills, on schools and family. And I know the new Education Secretary will be focused on that as well. And then a period of real flux where I was Chancellor during the summer and then as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, where I had the honour of my life to deliver Her late Majesty's funeral. So I'm very proud of my track record in government, in delivery. But I just explained to you and to Charlotte that over the weekend, I didn't want us to be seen to be somehow conspiring, a cabal of MPs, to keep Boris Johnson off the ballot paper without allowing him to go forward to the membership. When he got the numbers, but he reflected and he could see that the parliamentary party was overwhelmingly supporting Rishi Sunak, he quite rightly put country and party ahead of himself and said, I won't selfishly put my name forward.
Well,
he withdrew.
That's not
and
strictly,
I think Rishi's the best person.
That's not strictly true, is it? Because he says he spoke to both Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak to see whether they would unite. In other words, will they stand out as leaders and let him be leader? That's not the national interest. Yet again, Boris Johnson was looking after his own self-interest.
Adil, step back a second. When he was having those engagements, we were trying to find a way of uniting the party. The most important thing for us was to come together, build a team of all the talents and deliver in the next 24 months. The nation is hurting. We've got war on our continent, Putin using energy as a weapon against us. We're seeing that reflected in energy costs and in the cost of living and in food costs. Boris tried to engage when he could see that the parliamentary party was overwhelmingly in favour of Rishi Sunak. Even though he got the 102 endorsements, he did the right thing to put country first.
What had he done since the day that you wrote that letter asking him to resign? What had he done that you said, no, he should now come back? From what I can tell, he's just been on holiday in the Caribbean. He's had a number of holidays. You ask his constituents in Uxbridge, they say he's nowhere to be seen. What had he done between that time when you wrote that letter saying you should go and you should go now to suddenly saying you're saying he should have come back as Prime Minister?
So Boris 1.0 would have probably let his name go forward because he scraped through and got to 102 endorsements. Boris 2.0, as I described him in that article you just mentioned in The Telegraph, actually reflected and put country first and party first and backed Rishi Sunak. That's what he's done. That's the big difference. That's why I'm really confident that we've come together and we are united behind Rishi Sunak as our Prime Minister, and we will deliver the energy plan, and we'll deliver the economic plan on the 17th of November.
You backed Boris Johnson before he came out on the side of Rishi Sunak. You were backing him before that.
You're asking me to speak about the change in Boris Johnson. I'm telling you, Boris 1.0 would have probably said, no, I'm going forward to the membership, and we'd have had days of pain. Boris 2.0 said, no, I'm going to reflect and I'm going to back Rishi Sunak because that's the right thing to do. And I'm very proud of that. And I don't feel that I think I did the wrong thing. I think the right thing to allow Boris to go forward and make it his decision, not actually a group of MPs conspiring to keep him off the ballot paper.
OK, listen, you mentioned there the fiscal statement. The date's been pushed back. We get the autumn statement now on the 17th of November. So that means more uncertainty for people. We still don't know, what cuts are going to happen, what's going to happen about tax rises. Also, we still are in a situation where we don't know what's happening with the pensions, with the triple lock. Can you give us more clarity on this? Because for those people who are really worried about their state pension and how it's going to rise, those on benefits who are worried about what the impact is going to be for them, at the moment, they're in limbo.
So the autumn statement will be on the 17th of November. I think the Chancellor and the Prime Minister were right to do that. If you look around that cabinet table yesterday, there's a number of new Secretaries of State in their departments who are getting their feet under the desk. The Chancellor wanted a bit more time to get this right. There are no easy decisions, as the Prime Minister spoke about yesterday at Dispatch Box. These are going to be tough decisions. As I said, Putin's using energy as a weapon against us. So it's right to take our time. The one thing I would say to your viewers, whether it's pensioners or those most vulnerable, is Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor who put that package, that £1,200 of help to the 8 million most vulnerable households, and he will always look after the most vulnerable.
But why
for pensioners,
why couldn't he commit, though, to the triple lock? I mean, Liz Truss came out and committed to it, and then he hasn't been able to do that subsequently.
Because, well, I was about to say, for pensioners, what the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are absolutely conscious of is pensioners, and I'm going to state the obvious here, can't take on more work to augment, to increase their income, and therefore they're particularly vulnerable. The right thing to do and the responsible thing to do, as we've done for many years in government, is to have an autumn statement, and all this will be delivered by the Chancellor on the 17th of November, other than to say we will always protect the most vulnerable in our society in a very difficult time where we have war on our continent.
OK. Can I ask you about Suella Braverman? Only last week she resigned as Home Secretary, one of the highest states in office in government, one of the most responsible states, positions in office. A week later, she's back in the same job. Can you name any other industry, any other sector, any other part of Britain that would be even acceptable, let alone be allowed? And why is it acceptable at our highest institution in this country?
So when Suella resigned, you'll remember, Adil, her letter where she said, I've made a mistake. I'm not going to brush it under the carpet or attempt to hang on to my job. I'm going to resign immediately. And she fell on her sword. The new Prime Minister came in and look, you know, we've had instability. We've had governments previously. I've been in politics long enough, and you've been around long enough to know it would take months and years before governments change. This happened so rapidly, as I discovered this weekend, which we've just discussed. This Prime Minister looked at the detail, and actually he believed in second chances and redemption. And I hope you agree with me that you believe in second chances as well. And I think Suella has the talent
There's not been any time to comprehend. You're a business person. In the business world, this would never happen. No one would resign, and you would then allow them to come in a week later. That would never happen. It would just be so lack any credibility and any integrity, and that word comes up again.
I don't agree with you respectfully. I think the Prime Minister looked at the detail at what took place and made the decision that Suella is the right Home Secretary. She's focused. We've just been, I've been on the media around this morning talking about the gangs and the illegal migration and the exploitation of innocent people who are putting their lives at risk. We talked about the 15,000 more police officers dealing with drug and gang crime in our country. And, of course, our borders, as I just said. Suella Braverman has a big job to do, and I think the Prime Minister was right to give her a second chance.
However,
I believe in second chances. I don't know whether you don't agree with me.
There are suggestions, sorry to interrupt, but we're running out of time. There are suggestions that it wasn't a one-off and that objections were made as a consequence of that, and calls for an investigation to look into whether there are further security breaches, because we can't have the Home Secretary sharing secure information in an insecure way like this, can we?
Well, as I said, the Prime Minister looked at this. He dealt with this yesterday as well. And quite rightly, I think he's made a decision to say, I need Suella Braverman focused on dealing with the small boats, breaking that business model. And I think she will do an excellent job as Home Secretary. He's looked at that. He's given her a second chance. I believe in second chances. I hope you will do as well.
Do you believe in third chances? I mean, how many chances do you believe in? I mean, do they keep on getting chances?
Adil, there's no need to be...
no, but it's true, though. But how many chances should people get?
And flippant about this. She's the one who actually didn't try and hang on to her job. She said, I will resign immediately because I'm not going to brush it. I've made a mistake. I'm resigning. Politics now is moving so rapidly. Within a week, we find ourselves in a position where we have a new Prime Minister and a new government.
That's not the electorate's fault that politics is moving so rapidly. That's your party's fault.
That's just the reality. That's the reality. And we now have a Prime Minister focused on sustainability and delivery.
Nadhim Zahawi, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.